Well, hello, guys. My name is Prince Zulu, and this is my YouTube channel. Thanks once again for subscribing. Thank you for liking and commenting on my previous video. And because of your comments, we're discussing credit today. And not just because of that, but because as individuals, credits is a very important part of our lives. Now, in an ideal world where everyone has enough cash resources to meet their immediate needs, then credit should never be part of the discussion, because the people can afford to pay for their needs as they come. But the reality of our lives is that we find ourselves with immediate needs that are highly greater than our available cash resources. And because of that, we find ourselves getting into agreements with lenders, to say, I need to get this and I need it right now, but I do not have the cash right now, but I sort of have a forecast of my earnings in the next 3 years, and this is how they're going to be based on what I'm earning now and whatever increases I might get. And so because of that, would you please borrow me money now, and then I'll pay you over a certain period of time. And they agree, but before they agree, there's something important that they must have gone through, which brings us to the point with why is it important for us to have a very good credit profile. Well, it's because lenders of money do not have any other relationship with us, except for the fact that they're in the business of of lending money to people that need money, And even if they did have maybe a personal relationship or anything, it wouldn't matter, because at this point they're trying to borrow your money or to give you money so that they can also recover it back, And so the only information that they have about your ability to pay them back their money is your credit profile, And so it's very important that we really treasure and we look after our profile, and we look at ways of how we can improve it, because that's all that lenders of money will look at, So you find two people in some instances that have everything else the same, but different credit scores or credit profiles, And the one with a good credit score or profile will pay a very low interest rate, yet the other person with a very bad credit profile finds themselves paying a lot of interest, and that can be a lot in monetary terms. And so today I just want us to look at a few basic things that if we master, we should be on our way to a very good credit profile or credit score. Now, the first thing that I want us to touch on is a relationship that you must develop with your credit report. You need to know what your score is, and very often look it up and look at ways how you can improve. So you need to develop a relationship with your score, study it and see how you're doing, because before I saw my score, I thought I was doing fine. I pay all my debts and all of that. But when I actually went into that report, there's certain things that are very small that I was missing, And so it was important for me at that time to make a commitment to say, from now going forward, I'm always going to be looking at my score so that I can improve. Now, number two, a very close relationship with your bank statement. Now, your bank statement is what informs your lender how you behave on a monthly basis, So if you're always overdrawing cash, if on the 15th when you get paid, or on the 30th, all of your money is withdrawn in your account, you have nothing left, and all these other things that usually happen, your bank statement will tell that to your lender, and you might find yourself being disadvantaged from getting a very good deal. So be careful that you study your bank statement and that you have a very good relationship with your bank statement and your credit report. The third thing that you need to do is to not borrow for what I call sweets, So be careful what you borrow for, And most of the time, I prefer that when you borrow, it must be something that is essential, that is a need to you. We've had stories of people, I'm sure you've also had stories of people who went and borrowed and loaned 5,000 Rand and blew it with friends over the weekend, And you know, now you're sitting with debt that you're going to be paying off for over 2 years, you know, and you have nothing valuable to show for it, you know. So I think that's also very important, that we borrow for things that are very important in our lives. Let's not borrow for sweets. Well, unless, of course, you're in the business of selling sweets, you know, which brings us to a different concept, you know. It says, if you're in business, it's good to borrow only if the profit that you're going to make from whatever you are selling is greater than the interest that you're paying from borrowing the money, you know. So if maybe you borrow 1 rand, you know, and the interest on that 1 rand is 5 rand, but then the profit that you make from selling the sweets is 7 rand, then you've made a 2 rand profit. So then debt is good, you know. But for us as individuals, if you're not in business, then be careful what you borrow for. Number 2, or the next thing that I want us to, which is number 4, the next thing that I want us to discuss is there's a difference between affording and qualifying, you know. So most of the time we go into debt because we qualify, and we don't necessarily assess, do we really afford to incur this debt, you know. And so how you can improve on this is, the first thing, the questions that the bank or the lender will ask you before they give you money. So they ask you, what are your monthly expenses? What's your transport costs, and how much do you spend on food? You need to be honest when you answer those questions, you know, because then the lender at least has an advantage, you know, because they can assess your affordability reasonably well, and they'll give you what you can afford, you know. But if you lie, then you're disadvantaging yourself, because you'll find yourself sitting with debt that you cannot afford, you know. So that's the first thing. Number 2, you must be honest with yourself when you take up credit, you know. Let's not just rely on lenders, because they are a third party. We are the entities that need to assess whether we can afford debts now. And that is to say, after I've borrowed this amount of money, will I still be able to live a comfortable life, you know? Will I still be able to live until the end of the month and not struggle, you know? And so it's very important that we also assess that. And the next thing that I want us to look at is the fact that do not take out a lot of credit often, you know, or do not make a lot of credit applications, because that also impacts on your credit score. If you are always applying for credit, then you are seen as someone who's heavily relying on credit, and the lender might hit you with a very high interest rate, or you might not even get to even borrow money at all. So be careful how often you borrow in a year. Just give yourself a target and say, you know what, I'm not going to borrow beyond this amount of times, you know. And like I said, these are basic things. Behavior, you know, you find yourself walking into a store, you're asking, and this credit doesn't even have to be approved, you know. You just have to be applying for credit, and that's bad, because they say, you know what, this guy is applying for credit so many times. He's overly reliant with credit, and therefore we might not be able to get our money back. So let's hit him with a high interest rate, or let's not give him the money at all. So very important. The next thing is, if you can, pay more than what is required, you know, because then you are reducing the balance at which you'll be paying interest on, you know. So if you can pay more than what your lender requires you to pay, then do that. Just give them a lot more money, you know, so that your debt is reduced. Very quickly. And also pay on time. Pay on time, because if you pay on time, then you avoid being charged interest on outstanding amounts, you know. So if you pay on time, you are at an advantage, guys. Let's do that. The next point I would like to discuss is do not use up your credit capacity. So just because, like I said, if they say you have a buying power of maybe 8,000 rand, you know, it doesn't mean you have to use all of that buying power up just because it's there, you know. Just be careful that you only use credit when you actually need to use credit. And those are the few things that I would have loved for us to discuss in response to the comment that I got, and just in general, so that we can all have a good credit profile, and this will improve our lives significantly. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you again next time.